Okay, so today we're going to talk about increasing or decreasing by a specific percent. So we're not looking for how much something was increased or decreased. We're going to be given a percent, we're going to be given a price, and we want the new price. Right? Now, just as we did with the sentence before, remember I told you that when you're doing a percent, you can always do it using a fraction. What's the word version of the fraction for percent? Part over the whole, right? And it's really easy if you think about percentages as a sentence. And we're going to build other sentences. But in this case, all we're doing is a very simple, straightforward increase or decrease. So let's just think about what we already know. If you increase a price, for example, these are always easier to think of as money. That means you're going to add more to what you already have. Yes? Okay? So, always think increase, just think add. Right? Pretty straightforward. So what do you think decrease is always going to be? Subtract. Exactly. All right. But what we're doing is we are going to be finding a percent of a number. So hold off on writing that down. Let me talk about what we're going to do. So, if you have the original amount or price or whatever, that is always 100% of the price. So we're going to use 100% as our starting point on all of these. Okay? So if you go into a store and it's not on sale and the shirt costs $35, that $35 is 100% of the price. Yeah? But what we're going to do is we're going to look at how to increase or decrease by a certain percent. And you could find out the amount of increase and then add it to it. You might have been taught that way. It's not good. Instead, what we're going to do is just think about that baseline 100% and think about adding for increase or subtracting for decrease. So, what you're just going to do is take the original percent. Thank you. I'm so bad about that. The original percent plus the increased percent, or, of course, the original percent minus the decreased percent. If you work with the percentages, it eliminates some of the math, some of the steps. So if you do the math with the percentages, it makes it a lot easier. It's a lot less math to do. So let's say that I'm going to increase the price of a shirt 20%. Well, what percent is the original price of the shirt? And I'm going to increase that by how many percent? 20%. So in effect, I'm going to be paying 120% of the price. Does that make sense? So let's say we're going to decrease it by 40%. The original percent is how much percent? 100%. I'm going to decrease it by 40, so that means do what to it? Subtract 40, so 100% minus 40% is 60%. So I'm going to pay the amount I pay, because I'm not worried about how much I'm saving, right? I'm only worried about how much I'm paying. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on. So that means I'm going to pay 60% of the original price. Okay? So an increase is always going to be more than 100%. A decrease is always going to be less than 100%. Does it make sense? Okay. And we need to talk about that word of. I think we've already talked about it, but that's okay if you don't remember. If you see the word of in mathematics, the temptation is always to divide. But what does of always mean to do? Anybody remember? Multiply. Exactly. Okay? So, if I'm finding an increase of, that means I'm multiplying. Decrease of means I'm multiplying. But I need to find the percent or the multiplier first. Okay, so let's talk about it in steps. First, okay, do 100% plus or minus. Do you know that little symbol? You have plus and then a slash, then a minus. That means plus or minus. That little slash always means or. Plus or minus the percent of increase or decrease, depending on what you're doing. So all built into one. Okay? Second, so that's going to give you a percent, but you can't really do math with a percent. There's a percent key on your calculator, but don't get used to the fact that you need to convert it to a decimal. Okay? So divide by 100 to convert it to a decimal. Now, your calculator can do that for you, so it's fine if you don't need to do that, but I want it in your notes. Then, multiply that decimal times the original. I didn't leave any room for examples. The original amount. Now, we're talking about the dollars or whatever, not the percent. Right? So don't think I'm talking about, when I'm talking about the original, I'm talking about the original cost or the original number of people or whatever your original thing was. Okay? Not the percent. Okay? So add or subtract from 100, change it to a decimal, then multiply that decimal times your number. Couldn't be easier. Yes?
Is the original not 100%?
Always 100%. Yeah. You bet. Okay? Now, we're not talking about discount here. That's different. We're talking about increase or what? Discount is a separate word. So when we get to further questions, we're going to be talking about discount. That's slightly different, right? We're talking about increase or decrease. So, if you look on page 39 in your book, we'll just go through a few of these examples here. And again, I usually do odd ones, leave you the even ones. We're not going to do that many of them. And these are super easy once you get the hang of it. So we have $45 increase by 20%. So we're talking about increase, so we automatically, that should trigger the word what? Add, right? Add. So it's 100% plus how much more percent am I adding? 20%, which is going to give us 120%, which we're going to change into a decimal, and you can either do it on your calculator as divide by 100, or you know that that's simply going to move the decimal 2 places, make it smaller by 2 decimal places, right? So that's going to give us 1.2 as our decimal. So you can either move the decimal or you can just divide it by 100. You're going to want this number in your calculator anyway because you're about to multiply with it, right? So you might as well just put it in your calculator. And then I'm simply going to take that amount of increase times my original amount. And of course, y'all have the calculator, so you're going to do that. So what is 1.2 times 45? 54. And the units were dollars. On this exam, this assessment, if you forget the units, you're toast. Be very careful. So $54 was the units. Now, if you didn't have units, then it's fine. Don't worry about it. But if it tells you dollars or shirts or people or whatever, you need to be specific. That's one of the things we're going to ding you on this assessment. It'll keep you from getting an excellence. Keep you from getting the highest score if you don't put the units. That's all there is to it. How easy is your life right now? Okay? Now, look at something, I don't know. Just look at number 13. It says we're going to increase 48 kilometers by 200%. Now, I know it seems weird to have a bigger increase, but that's fine. You can increase something by more than it's more. That just means so many times more, right? So, start off with 100%. We're doing an increase, so that's add. The amount we're increasing is 200%, so that gives us 300% as our total amount we're gonna have at the end. Yes? Then change that to a decimal. That's just 3. So 3 times 48. Somebody. Thank you very much. And kilometers. Boom, you're done. Some days are easy. All right. Let's look at a couple of decrease problems just for kicks. Same difference though. So look at number 3 on the next page. It says decrease 195 millimeters by 50%. Now this one's pretty easy because you're just taking half off, so you could think of it as just divide by 2 and you'd get the same answer. But we're going to do it with the formula because not all of them are nice, easy numbers like that. So the original amount was 100%. We're decreasing, so that's subtraction. We're taking 50% off, so that's going to give us 50%. Change that to a decimal, it becomes 0.5 times my original amount, which is 195. Anybody? 97.5, and of course we need your units of millimeters. Is easy? Okay, so I'm going to give you some of those to do. You're just going to practice that. Again, keep it simple. Don't try to find it like you would do discount. That's going to make it a little harder. Okay? Now, because that's so easy, I think we can do one more section. Okay? So let's look at the next section. It starts on page 41. Finding a percent increase or decrease. Oops, sorry, I should be doing this. All right, now, you already know how to do this because you're finding a percent. How do you find a percent? You put the part over what? Over the whole. So if you know the amount that it became and the whole is the number that it started with, yeah? That's the thing you started with is the whole price. And you either increased it or you what? Decreased it. So look there at example 1. Hula's pay is increased from $14.50 to $14.79 per hour. Calculate the percentage of increases. All right? So what we would need to do first is find the amount of increase or decrease. And you're going to do exactly the opposite that we did before, because if you're looking for how much something went up, that's the difference between the original and the new one. So if it's an increase, if it went up, you need to subtract them, right? So you're just going to subtract those amounts. And just don't worry about which one's which. Always try to get a positive value. If it's a decrease or an increase, you'll see in just a moment. So find the amount of increase or decreases by subtracting, okay, the new minus the original usually. But if it's decrease, that's in for increase, or it could be the original minus the new one for decrease. Because you don't want to work with negative numbers with this. Does that make sense? You know it's a decrease because you have the word decrease. So if you subtract, if you always do new minus the original, it'll give you the answer, but sometimes you're going to get negative numbers. But what is that negative telling you? That the price didn't go up, it went, what? Down. So if you do that, that's fine. It doesn't make the slightest bit of difference. Traditionally, you'll always do that. Yeah, that's just increase, decrease. Sorry, my handwriting, trying to get too much in there. All right, so in this case, his pay was increased from $14.50 to $14.79. So it's just $14.79 is the new one minus $14.50, which gives us a difference of 0.29. And when you're doing the math, you don't need the units in there. You can make sure you put those units in at the end. Okay, so what was the amount of increase in this case? 0.29. Okay? Now think about this. The amount of increase or decrease is a part of the original amount. it was based on that original amount. And the reason I'm using that terminology is if you think of it like that, you now have a part and a whole. So it stays with the same language for finding any other percent. Okay? We had to do a little math first to find the number. Okay? But now we're just going to put it as part over whole, where the part is the amount of increase or decrease, and the whole, I already got whole down there. The whole is the original amount. So just trying to keep you in the same terminology that we used on the others. Okay? So in this case, how much did his pay go up? 0.29. How much was his original pay? $14.50. And now it's just a matter of finding the percent, and we did that. Enter that into your calculator. Change it to a decimal, then change it to a percent, or you could simply take that times 100%. Goes one step easier, right? So if you take that times 100%, and you're going to end up with 2, and of course you need to put the percent in there. So that turns it right back into the same types of problems we were doing before. Okay? Now, what if you subtracted them and you got a negative number? That just means you're working with decrease. Ignore the negative. You're not going to get a negative percent. If you do put it in there and you get a negative 2%, that just meant what? Decrease of 2%. So you're fine with the negatives if you just want to put them always as new minus original so that you're working with those. Looks good? You want to do some on your own? Sounds like a good idea. So let's stop here.